I think we approach it a little bit differently. I watch absolutely everything that I can, with the idea that if there's something good, I'll steal it, and then also look out for pitfalls or red flags. And the first things that I rented after Ridley asked me was Life of Brian, and then Mel Brooks' History of the World, Moses, because they're fantastic. Very funny, and also you have to watch out for that, because with anything that has the sort of weight and potential earnestness of a film like this, you can very easily become funny unintentionally. So I just really wanted to, and any excuse to watch those films is a good excuse. And then the Torah, read the Torah, and read a wonderful book called Moses Alive by Jonathan Kirsch, Legends of the Jews, and then obviously Rid's Guidance and Steve Zanin's script.
And I tend to avoid watching movies that feel like they're a precursor to a movie, out of fear that I am going to lean in too much to them. But the impression of Yul Brynner was such an indelible thing for me when I was a child, that I always had that in the back of my head, I guess. So, but I haven't gone back to watch that. In the same way, when I felt terrified doing a stage production of Streetcar, I couldn't bring myself to watch the movie of Streetcar, except for the part where Marlon was at the bottom of the stairs yelling Stella, because I thought, as long as I can do something different with that, for the point of watching it so that I didn't lean into it. So I try and avoid certain things. I like to try and find most of the research I get for a character out of the screenplay, and hopefully when you've got a great project headed by a great director, that's been written by great people, there's so much research that goes into that you can just steal that from the script, and then do your own little investigations.
How did you manage to say Stella differently?
I whispered it. I whispered it with true pain.
Some films, it's really nice to have a barely controlled chaos going on. No real idea, particularly where the camera's going to be. No idea when it's going to be on you. Just do it, and you see what happens, and sort of almost go start filming before you're ready, and that works very nicely for that film. And then other films where it has to be much more plot driven, and so you do need a bit more definition. Everything needs some sort of an obstacle and hurdles to define it. I think that I've certainly never worked on anything that has no hurdles and obstacles at all, because then I think that I'd still be working on it now. No one would ever stop at all. With Ridley, he's able to make it in 74 days without compromising quality. I think because first off, he has a team who are really fantastic, who he works with again. Now, a lot of directors do that, but then Ridley is very charmingly impatient, right? Which again is another nature of directors. But he will work with multiple cameras. And there'd be some scenes, not just with action shots, but there might be scenes, and Joel and I would be sitting like this, and there would be 6 cameras. And I really enjoyed that, because you didn't ever have to stop to go back and do, we've got to get Joel's close-up now we've got to get my close-up, now we've got to get the double shot. You're getting everything at the same time. No repetition is needed, no matching of takes is ever needed whatsoever. You can just do whatever you want each and every time. It can be very different. And also he marries this real artistry. He's a painter. That's what he loves to do. He sketches non-stop on call sheets. He gets a stick out, puts it in the sand, and sketches to describe to us, what he wants. He marries that with a real practical, no-nonsense approach to filmmaking, and to having real momentum. You don't sit around much on Ridley sets, whereas other directors, you can find yourself sitting around for days. That doesn't happen with Ridley. Ridley and I were talking about making the film, whilst I was making American Hustle, and I walked in the office, I was looking more like a bald Santa Claus more than Moses. And, you know, and he looked very shocked and looked like, what the hell has he done here? And said, no, you got very short hair, you know, and tried to avoid looking at my girth. And then, you know, he must have just been racing through his brain of, okay, can I get somebody else? Can Janty Yates create a tunic big enough to hide this? And I just tried to lose as much weight as I could, and the tunics were very helpful. And then I continued losing weight as we filmed as well. But it also led us to say, well, look, Moses is such a fascinating character, and both Rid and I were surprised ourselves in how complex he was, and that he really does go through almost every human emotion possible, and going far beyond, you know, our film. We had to find a place to finish at some point, but we were interested in keeping on going and making an 8-hour-long film. I'm not sure anyone else would have been interested in that at all. But we said, well, are we really going to get hung up on hair, you know, in such an incredible story? And obviously it spans a great deal of time, so hence, you know, short hair, and then he's got it in dreadlocks and he hacks it, and, you know, sometimes the beard is long, sometimes it's short. And that to me is an example of, you know, these hurdles which actually help to define a film, and in the end enhance it.
Has it created either more of a spiritual identity or more of a political consciousness being part of this?
I mean, I think inevitably that the politics is within the world that we're showing absolutely an important role, and mixed in with religion. But also the thing that was very fascinating to me in the Torah was the nature of Moses' relationship with God. And like is described in the film, you know, the definition of Israelite is he who wrestles with God. And Moses did that non-stop. You know, he didn't want the job. He initially said no again and again and again. God got quite mad at him. There's actually a passage where God tries to kill Moses, and Zipporah saves him by circumcising one of their sons. And there's that turmoil throughout, and ultimately ending tragically with Moses not making it to the promised land, to Canaan, and so it is a story of revolution and conflict.
My takeaway, if you call it that, from this movie, because I was raised Catholic, and this story to me when I was a child was more of a fable. You know, all I saw when I read stories of the Bible was the animals 2 by 2 and the parting of the Red Sea. I was mystified by those stuff, and I had the beginnings of a young scientific mind, and I would always be like, but how was that possible? And, oh, well, if God made that happen. And then I started having this relationship with God, which was very much guilt-driven. When my parents, who were only 35 at the time, were just young kids, really, trying to raise 2 boys, and were obviously tired, or, you know, they'd been up too late on a Saturday. So Sunday morning, and 2 young, eager, kind of, you know, church-going boys who they had created by sending us in our Holy Communion were like, let's go to church. And I'm like, no, not this morning. So after a few missing weeks of going to church, I was terrified of going back to this little wooden house where God was. And so my relationship with religion was that. Coming to this movie, what I see is the reason why those stories are there, what it's there to teach us. And yes, you're saying it's the story of a struggle and a struggle for freedom. And and the inverse of that really is that, you know, my character's there to represent the opposite ethical point of view that we should have as either a human or as the leader of other humans, is that one culture should respect another culture, that one person should respect another person, and that we time and time again don't, and that's why this story is so resonant. So the real takeaway from me is not so much about increasing my faith, but increasing my opinion of religion as something that should be there for the powers of good, and unfortunately, so many times those ideas and beliefs butting up against each other cause too much damage.